welcome to Bad Movie Beatdown, and here comes the really fun part of Snipes Month, the direct-to-video movies. Or at least so I thought. Yes, I bought a box set of 6 of Wesley Snipes' direct-to-video action movies. Don't worry, it was less than a $5 brand new. And I thought with 6 films that it would be an easy pool to select from. I mean, I only had a few more than that to choose from when it came to Seagal Month. And how much review fire did I get out of this box set? 2 out of 6. I think the reason for this is fairly simple. Snipes is nowhere near as bad as Seagal. He's still relatively in shape, and when you take away Seagal's laziness, you're left with the movies themselves, which are really boring and generic action fodder that doesn't play well to Snipes' martial arts sensibilities. The only real exception to this rule is the Mario Van Peebles directed Hard Luck, which bafflingly puts together Snipes in a typical money in a briefcase plot with scenes of torture porn inflicted by Sybil Shepherd and an Asian guy half her age who happens to be her lover. Oh, and Mario Van Peebles himself shows up, cycling in a circle for some reason around a cop. Yeah, it was pretty damn weird and nothing I'd ever review, but at least it was different from the usual fodder I have to sit through. Which brings us nicely to 2005's The Marksman, which is exactly the sort of generic action fodder that I'm talking about. So by this point in his career, Snipes had completely buried his chances in Hollywood with the Blade Trinity screw-up, and this and his tax troubles saw him flee to Eastern Europe to make action movie cheapies. The Marksman was filmed back-to-back with the superior 7 Seconds and is an Andrew Stevens production. If you're familiar with my reviews, you should know his work since he produces loads of these cheapies, yes, including several Seagals, and he was involved in franchise pictures as well. He was a producer on Shadow Man, Out of Reach, Half Past Dead 1 and 2, and that's only the ones I've reviewed at this point. As you can tell, he's a man of quality and integrity, and The Marksman fits his usual high standards. So we start off the film with possibly the worst military outfit I've ever seen, who are meant to be guarding this tent. They're under attack from one man, namely Wesley Snipes, although he's in shadow and shaky cam most of this scene, so I'm not even sure it's actually him. Anyway, the reason why they're horrendous as a military team is because when guarding the tent, each of them leave the tent, including the captain, who leaves only one guy guarding the tent from the outside. And even that guy strays from the tent, allowing Snipes to just slice his way in and plant a bug.
The pain is here, sir!
Damn, I really shouldn't abandon my position when I'm under attack. Snipes plays the painter with no name who paints targets for airstrikes, and this, naturally, is a training mission showing us what he does best. This sequence is meant to show us how much of a badass he is, but all it shows is how much the rest of his team need to retake basic training. There's a fancy pants title sequence, and as I said to Wrong Side of Town, and I'll say it again here, if the title sequence is the most impressive part of your movie, you're doing it wrong. Cut to Chechnya, where some random Russian guy is out running a tank. I'm not entirely sure who this guy is or what he's doing, but then again, I don't know why there's a little girl out by herself in this abandoned, war-torn village.
Where's your mommy and daddy? Come on.
Where are her parents? Who was that guy? Why was he just shot? Don't worry, the movie has the answers to none of these questions. So we cut to a briefing at the Pentagon, which is being held by Gorman from Aliens, and is also attended by Amanda, played by Emma Samms of Dynasty, and Matt Salinger, who you won't recognise from 1990's Captain America movie. During this relentlessly dull exposition scene, Gorman's talking about Igor Zazan. He's taken control of what is supposedly a nuclear power plant, which is blatantly an old sewage works, where 3 of the reactors have been decommissioned, but the 4th is capable of going back online and being detonated as a weapon, potentially killing thousands. Especially since he's buddies with someone who can give him fuel rods from a failed North Korean reactor, as seen in this appalling Photoshop. Also, I don't exactly trust their intel when they can't even get their PowerPoint presentations to display in the right aspect ratio. Surely this is a job for the Russians? Well, apparently there's some American scientists involved and they need to be rescued too, before sending a precise airstrike in to level the place, which requires a painter and a ranger team. Bring in the Snipes! He and his ranger team are in Germany, hanging out in a strip club to wake you up from the last scene's dullness. What? I I thought I saw titties! Snipes, I'm gonna call him that because I'm not gonna call him Painter through the whole damn movie, obviously believes in some lone wolf shit as he sits as far away from his team as possible, as if their suckiness is contagious. It could also be that he's drinking to endure himself as starring in this pile of crap. The captain comes in and tells them that they've got the mission. So one very competent man and several very incompetent men are going to be sent on a delicate time-restricted rescue mission? Yeah, they're the right men for the job! But if you thought that we're getting into the action, you thought wrong. After cutting randomly to footage from Top Gun for no other reason than to show a fighter jet landing on an aircraft carrier, riveting stuff there, we have several rather purposeless scenes, like cutting to the Kremlin because nothing is quite happening there yet.
Excuse me, Mr. Ivanov. The Prime Minister is ready for us.
Okay.
Narrative flow, pacing, action. We're only 20 minutes into this thing, and already you're boring and incoherent. Not a good start. Eventually, Snipes is briefed, and it seems him and Amanda had a thing together.
Is that it? You want to say anything more to me?
Briefing's over.
It's still there. The same look in your eyes.
What look would that be?
I don't know, boredom, disdain, disinterest? Because that's not just in his eyes, that's all over his face. Supposedly the reason he's so antisocial is due to a bungled mission from a few years back, but I think it's more the fact that Snipes obviously didn't want to learn that many lines and just asked if he could pull a Rambo here. But the thing is, there's absolutely nothing interesting about Painter. He has no personality, he hardly speaks, his backstory is generic, he doesn't even have a name! And this guy is supposed to be our main character, and all we're getting is Wesley Snipes looking as disappointed in himself as we are. Oh, and in the Kremlin we have more stock characters, as those evil Russians like Minister Ivanov talk about setting up the Americans for a fall and holy overexposure, Batman! I don't know about you, but I actually like to see people who are talking in conversations. What is it about these Andrew Stevens movies not having lighting budgets?
Locate the hostages, paint the target, get out before anyone knows we're there.
This being a stealth op and all, we gotta leave Arm behind. You can see his fat ass a mile away.
And I can see your bad acting all the way from space. Even Wesley Snipes seems to be rolling his eyes at the quality of the acting.
Man, I did some checking on it. Total malfunction in Bosnia. Painted the wrong target.
He lit the wrong targets? But those were the right targets in Iron Eagle! He's a hero! The use of clearly 20-year-old stock footage in this scene is hilarious, and actually reminded me of that scene in Airplane, where Robert Hayes has visions of successively older plane crashes that he's responsible for. And as if that wasn't enough stock footage for you, their jump out of the plane is barely re-edited stock footage from Navy SEALs, only a little bit re-tinted. Bloody hell, with all the cliches and stock footage, it feels like a lost 80s action film than something made in 2005, and it's only a hair's breadth away from becoming a full-blown parody. So they land in a forest, which looks to be the exact same forest featured in the start of the movie, and barely 30 seconds pass before some random jeep passing through the forest starts shooting at them, which Snipes soon takes out. Since they're nowhere near the plant, who the hell were those guys? Terrorists out on a leisurely drive? But just when you think we might be getting somewhere, the movie stalls again with yet another scene of a plane landing.
Captain Jack Stevens, skipper of the Oakland.
Lieutenant Carter, sir.
I was impressed with your flight record, Lieutenant, but what I don't see is why a Navy pilot can't fly this mission.
I know the terrain. I know the ground crew. The Army needs me.
Did that scene feel odd and out of place, like it has nothing to do with the film we're watching right now? Well, it doesn't, because it's a scene taken straight out of another Andrew Stevens production called Active Stealth. I wish I was kidding. That's right, apparently these damn direct-to-video movies must come in at around 90 minutes or so, even though there are many theatrical releases that only run to about 80. However, IMDb is actually wrong on this. There isn't just one scene taken from Active Stealth, whole sequences are lifted from that film. And I should know, since I watched Active Stealth, since it's available for free online, and is one of the lamest war films I've ever seen. Oh, and that's Andrew Stevens himself in this ripped-off scene. Just thought you'd like to know. So all those pointless directionless scenes that go absolutely nowhere, all left in deliberately. Hurrah for deliberate incompetence! Back to our regularly scheduled movie, and they infiltrate a hospital which is right next to the plant, which probably isn't good for the health of the patients, and that's why it appears to be abandoned.
Your nerve shaking?
Yeah, a little.
Means your instincts are turned on.
I'm glad to know someone's feeling tense around here, because I'm certainly not. They find a very dead woman in the morgue and find some scientists hiding in a closet.
The soldiers were wrecking the medical center, and we hid.
Who's the woman in the morgue?
What woman?
The one with the hole in the head.
Whoa, that's not Wesley Snipes' voice there. Don't tell me he's getting as lazy as Steven Seagal. I don't want to start another voice double counter. Apparently there's an underground connection between the plant and the hospital. Don't even ask me how that makes sense. And they use that way to sneak into the reactor, where they find the bodies of the missing scientists. Snipes begins to paint the reactor for the airstrike, and apparently the Rangers don't think it's worth their time protecting him and just fall back, just leaving him completely on his own. Why the hell would you do this? Surely as a team you want to stick together, especially since the painter is the whole point of this mission. Who taught these guys tactics? And now that I think about it, why is this movie called The Marksman? He does mark targets, so to speak, but he's a painter, so surely the movie should be called The Painter. The Marksman just makes it sound like he's some sort of sniper. I don't think anyone renting this movie would be under the mistaken impression that Wesley Snipes is playing Picasso in this movie. The transmission is received by the cast of Active Stealth, but there's a bit of a problem. Some bad guys have arrived, and Snipes is there completely by himself. Luckily it helped that those terrorists were completely deaf. So Snipes makes his way out and tries to catch up with the rest of the team, who are on their way to the chopper back, when he comes to a sudden realization.
This is too easy.
We got a problem.
Oh really? You've barely had any resistance up until this point, and only now you think this is strange? Also, I love how him falling off a ladder onto his arse is actually a plot point. And it turns out that Snipes' completely out of nowhere hunch was indeed correct, as the scientists turn on them and start killing people, including throwing a grenade into the helicopter before they put her down.
Where is it? Come on!
What are you doing? Stop looking for the grenade and get out of the helicopter! And now you're crispy and dead. Well done, pilot! Yep, the writers of this flick make it feel even more like a lost 80s action movie by ripping this twist straight out of Rambo First Blood Part 2, as almost everyone bar Snipes is captured by the terrorists, and the only reason he was left behind was to facilitate this plot turn. Given the competency they showed in the opening scene, I was counting the seconds until they got captured.
Let's keep them alive.
Hang on, we've seen you kill potential hostages at almost every turn, and yet now you decide to capture them? This wouldn't be dramatically convenient inconsistency, would it? Especially since they're soon seen double-crossing and killing the other treacherous scientists, but hey, I don't think anyone working on this gives a shit about logic. So Snipes is on his own, except for Hargreaves, who managed to avoid getting captured, but he just seems to ignore him anyway. He wants to get a military radio, so he has to shoot this guy on the guard tower. Don't worry, he had a nice soft landing on that crash mat. He grabs the radio and, get this, he calls Amanda on her mobile phone! Did this movie even have a military advisor? Just because it has a receiver on it doesn't mean you can make telephone calls on it. I hope he at least agreed to pay the charges. He tells Amanda that he thinks they're being set up when, holy shit, an action scene has finally arrived. Oh, and one of the terrorists is firing his gun one-handed. Clearly no one gave a crap about that. And not content with two guys chasing him on foot and a jeep pursuing him as well, they bring out a freaking tank, which, yes, ends up killing the two foot soldiers instead. Is the tank really necessary when you're chasing after one guy? Sure, it's Wesley Wesley Snipes, but it's a bit like using a grenade to unblock your sink. And speaking of grenades, he blows up the Jeep with one, putting an end to that momentary excitement. Instead, let me tell you how throughout the movie, the US have been trying to track the fuel rods being taken on their way to the reactor, because that plot thread is so damn exciting. Amanda is suspicious after Snipes' phone call, and her Russian contact tells her to look again at the satellite pictures they got out of the reactors. So she looks at the Russian pictures and discovers the world's most blatant photoshopping, and comparing it to an American picture, it turns out the fuel rods had already arrived and they're just following a decoy. Then again, don't be surprised they didn't pick that one up, since they still haven't noticed that the word analysis is misspelt in huge letters throughout the entire scene. Not exactly big on details, are they? Elsewhere, Snipes finds some big warehouse that happens to have some protective goodies in it for no other reason than to set up the ending.
Secondary target, just in case.
Whatever you say, not Wesley Snipes! And in this mess of incomprehensibility, we get another section of active stealth lifted, in this case an entire action sequence where the American fighter goes up against a Russian one, or that's what the dubbed-in dialogue indicates. What's even better about this sequence is that active stealth was a stock footage movie like this one, and we're getting the exact same shots already lifted from stock and Top Gun. We are watching a stock footage movie cobbled together from another stock footage movie. That's not even third rate, that's bloody fourth rate. And lifting all these scenes from an already incompetent movie means that we get the exact same errors duplicated. The constantly changing jet models, backgrounds and film stocks, the fact that the cockpit for both the jets are the same, the atrocious special effects for the gunfire and missiles, the fact the same piece of stock footage is used twice for 2 explosions, the list goes on. You know, if you are going to take footage from another movie, don't take it from a Fred Olin Ray film. A guy who directs so many movies a year that he doesn't give a shit about detail or competency. And despite this action scene being over the fact that they violated Russian airspace, about 5 minutes later...
The fighter's about to enter Russian airspace.
Nice continuity, guys! So after that shit, Amanda goes to Gorman with her findings, trying to convince him about what's going on.
What could Ivanov possibly gain from something so insane?
Imagine what would happen if we hit a live reactor. And think about where the blame would fall. Political control of Russia be up for grabs. And every bit of it was through Viktor Ivanov.
Wow, she got so impassioned that her accent defected to the English. Gorman doesn't care though, even though there's clear evidence, because the decoy truck has showed up positive for radiation, and anyone who's seen Aliens knows that Gorman is always wrong. We see the decoy truck at a roadblock, and for not one but several scenes, they draw out the inevitable as they open the truck for 15 solid minutes. Oh, it was a decoy? Well, colour me shocked. Hargreaves has apparently got back in the tunnel again, and Snipes goes down to follow him.
Dog, stay put. I'll find you.
Right after I discover where my voice went. This leads to yet another inept, barely staged action scene where Snipes gets boxed in and Hargreaves has to save him with some well-placed but barely effective grenades. Bear in mind that grenades blew up a helicopter earlier and these are barely flashbangs. I hate to sound like a broken record here, but everything in this film is inconsistent. Hargreaves leads Snipes to where the others are being held and rescue their teammates, who don't look relieved or thankful, just kind of bored, really.
Keep your men moving. I'll catch up.
What are you talking about?
Primary target was a setup. They used the hostages to record a third reactor before we got here. Gotta do what's right.
I'm out of here, Captain.
Rogers!
That guy is the worst captain ever! I mean, he's so powerless that he can't even stop his own men from wandering off. I mean, Rogers deserves a court-martial for how he just acted then. Hargreaves follows Snipes whilst the others leave, and they start planting C4 charges around the place to deal with the terrorists. I think if your throat was slit, you'd find it very difficult to scream. So after borrowing stealth tactics from Metal Gear Solid on the PS1, Snipes makes his attempt to shut down the reactor, and enough things are blowing up and firing to remind us that finally, this is supposed to be an action movie. Oh, and the rest of the team show up to, you know, actually provide support like they should have been doing the whole time. Snipes gets into the reactor and we have, amongst other things, a ladder climbing contest and some lame close quarters combat that doesn't show any of Snipes' martial arts skills. What the hell is up with that sound effect for the machine gun hitting him in the head? Is his skull made out of steel? So Snipes deactivates the target just in time and sends the missile flying towards the secondary, meaning Zazen gets a severe case of missile up the arse.
That son of a bitch did it.
We have no idea what that secondary target was on our end, but that son of a bitch sure did something! And at the Kremlin, Ivanov is assassinated for his part in the plan, which is made to look like a suicide. And really, what was the plan? Detonate a nuke on Russian soil and that somehow brings back communism? How would that even work? Amanda and Snipes are all lovey-dovey in the film's final scene.
My flight's not for 8 hours.
That's a long time.
Operation Infiltrate the Vagina, engage! And here's something you might be familiar with if you saw my review of Half Past Dead 2. Yeah, they used the exact same trick of going through the entire cast list by replaying clips from the film just to extend the running time. However, they even include the cast members that only appeared in footage taken from active stealth. And yes, that means the entire cast roster is played out 3 times in this movie. The Marksman may well be the worst movie that Wesley Snipes has ever made, bar none. It's hard to believe that only a year after Blade Trinity, bad as that was, he appeared in such bottom-of-the-barrel material. The production values are virtually non-existent, the whole thing's screaming cheap from the rooftops before you even realise the major portions are recycled stock footage taken from a Daniel Baldwin movie. This plot is clearly written to just barely patch the film together and makes no sense as a result, being dragged out to the point of inaction and tedium. Snipes, barely speaking, let alone acting, is phoning it in almost Seagal style to the point where he's even occasionally voice doubled. Even basic factual accuracy is completely wrong, so even people who like military movies regardless of merit will hate it. Quite frankly, it was made by a bunch of people who didn't care what the hell they were putting out, and you shouldn't give a damn about it existing either. I'm Matthew Buck, beating down bad Snipes movies everywhere.